finally, two of the books on my shelves that I haven't read yet are by a Canadian author. I thought this was the perfect time to join in the Read-eh-thon running from the 1st to the 8th of July. Hosted by Lala over at Books and Lala, which has the aim to read Canadian authors. There are 5 prompts, but the one rule to rule them all is to read Canadian authors. The 2 books that I do have on my shelves and that I am considering reading are the first in the Oryx and Crake trilogy by Margaret Atwood, and also Alias Grace by Margaret Atwood. So I only have 2 books on my shelf in physical form already by a Canadian author. Those are even by the same author, and those are also by Margaret Atwood, who I feel like everyone knows already anyway. So in order to come up with my TBR for this readathon, I went onto a used books website called Middlesex, which is a German site, and tried to find whatever books they had which sounded good by Canadian authors. So I am going to unbox this package that I got and see what we got. Not all of these are by Canadian authors because, you know, I got carried away. But some of these are, and I'm hoping that they're all in good condition and that I'll get excited to read some of these for the readathon. So we'll just unpack and see how we go. I am super prepared and I have a pair of scissors here. Also, because online shopping is so much fun, I got a new pair of glasses, which I'm trying out, and I feel like they are reflecting quite a lot of light, and they also make me look like an owl. But, you know, maybe a hip owl. Maybe that's a good look for myself. So, yeah. Also, I hope you appreciate I'm wearing a red t-shirt for this Canadian themed readathon. Always more sellotape. Ooh. Whoa, what do we have? Paper, paper, books. So, without any rhyme or reason and order, I'm just going to grab into this. And the first book I got for cheap, so cute, is this dinky little book by Alice Munro called Dear Life. Alice Munro is Canadian. I hope so. I've not read anything by her yet, and this is a collection of short stories. There were actually quite a lot to choose from, and Dear Life just seems to be the one that most people read. So I thought I'd go with that. I found that I do quite often like short story collections by one author. I used to always say I don't like short stories, but that's because I don't like them when they are... I don't tend to like when someone else has just sort of picked together short stories that spuriously somehow are supposed to link together. But if it's one author, it's one tone, and I feel like that's more satisfying because I can dive into more if I want more than just this short story snippet. All of this just distracting on the fact that I don't really know what this is about. But she is a Nobel Prize winner, highly acclaimed for her short stories. So I thought this was a good time to try one of Alice Munro's short story collections. Then what else do I have? The next thing is also by a Canadian author. And this... Sorry, I'm like trying to decide whether I think this is in good condition or not, because these are used books. This is Sleeping Giants, which is the first in I think a trilogy written by Sylvain Neuvel. I am not sure, but a Canadian author. He is from, well, he was born in Quebec. And I've had this in my hands in the bookstore. Every now and then I thought this is a sort of sci-fi trilogy, which I am not opposed to, and then just never really made that final step of actually purchasing it. And seeing as it's a Canadian author, you know, I thought, why not? Oh, so it looks like there's actually a sort of interesting different format with like file reports and stuff like that. Interesting. So maybe a contender for the Read Read-eh-thon. Then I have, I'm going to skim over this because this is not actually a Canadian author, but I've wanted this book for a very long time, and that's The Collector by Fowles. What's this person's first name? It's vintage, so I probably should know this. John Fowles. This apparently is supposed to be a pretty sort of spooky story about a guy who kidnaps and holds a woman captive, I think. And The Collector, especially because it has this butterfly or moth, I'm not sure, on the cover, reminds me quite a lot of a thriller that I read not too long ago, which was called Butterfly Garden, I think, which was also super creepy. And this being a classic, I thought that would be quite interesting. Not a Canadian author though, so not to be considered for the readathon, but you know, maybe I'll be brave and stray away from the rules. Then I also got Middlesex by Jeffrey Eugenides. This is a story about someone who is born first as a girl, then as a boy. I'm not quite sure, but it's it comes highly praised by my mum, and I trust her. Jeffrey Eugenides also wrote The Virgin Diaries, and I'm pretty excited to read this one actually. It's sort of very small, which makes the more than 500 pages a bit more intimidating to read. But I find that's the only downside to buying used books on these like book sites, that you're not always sure what kind of edition you're going to get and how it's going to look. This is in really good condition though. I'm not going to criticize that. But it has these like really, really tight margins, which I dislike because I hate breaking the spine. I'm going on a tangent here. Let's see, what else do I have? I also have A Clockwork Orange, because I've never read it. Small little book. Maybe I'll feel like something wacky and crazy. Also, I think the cover looks really cool, to be honest. But also, not a Canadian author. Oh, I'm not doing very well here. Did I have anything still? Okay, I'll skim over the next one, which is also not by a Canadian author, although I'm pretty sure it's not a Canadian author.
Could be saying something wrong.
Nope, British person, not Canadian. This is Good Me, Bad Me, a thriller about a girl whose mother is a serial killer, I believe. I like a good psychological thriller every now and then, and I considered buying this last year, I think, in the bookshops, when it was in the bookshops, and I was too cheap. So now I got it used for cheap. And then I have, I do have two more, which finally are, in fact, by Canadian authors, so I can consider these for the readathon. The first one is a slightly scoffed copy of Omens by Kelly Armstrong. Now, Kelly Armstrong, a Canadian author, has a really fun website. I really had fun. You can go onto her website and take a test on which of her books you should read, depending on whether you feel like a young adult protagonist, or if you only want adult protagonists in her book, and if you want a mystery or a thriller. I have no clue what this is about. I got the vibe from the website that this woman has an amazing output. She writes a lot of sort of also mystery, but like also sort of fantasy books, loads of series. This is also a series, but I did make sure that this was the first in a series about a woman that finds out that she is adopted. As an adult, she finds out that she was adopted and that her biological parents, I think, were murderers or something like that. And then she goes on this trip to find out more about herself and her family, I think. Ends up in this sort of ominous town. Oh, I don't know. I'm making it up from glancing at what it says at the back. But who knows? Maybe this is like a fun new find that I found due to trying to find books available to me by Canadian authors. Have any of you read this? Do you know Kelly Armstrong? She seems to have written absolutely loads, so chances are good someone has read something by her. I'm not into like werewolves in love necessarily, and she does seem to also write about that. So yeah, I gave that one a hard pass. And the final book that is in this lovely package is Alone in the Classroom by Elizabeth Hay. This is a Canadian #1 bestseller and thus qualifies for the Read-eh-thon. It is told from the perspective of a daughter of a teacher, I think, and she's sort of telling the story of her mother who took care of and taught this young student, and the principal who was skeptical of this relationship, I think, but possibly also quite a horrible man, and there's murders, and I think it might be a sort of murder mystery thing, but also sort of the a sort of book that builds on like these different strands, different generations, telling a story. I'm not sure, but I think I thought something about this sounded promising to me. Now I'm not quite sure why anymore. But hey, there you go. So to recap, I got, if I'm not completely mistaken, 4 new books by Canadian authors. And I'm going to have a little look-see if they fit into the challenges of the readathon. The first being red cover. And I'd say it would be a bit much of a stretch to say any one of these have a truly red cover. So I'm planning on reading Alias Grace anyway, because Tone Topple starts this week, and this is also a pretty big book. So I'm saying this is red, orange leaning on red. So I feel like I might cheat sort of somewhat and take care of that prompt, read a red book. The next one is a title that has A in the cover, as in EH. And well, there's loads of the in these titles, so I guess, you know, Alone in the Classroom has A in it somehow. Not really, but I'm not too fast. Then the third is to read a book by an Indigenous author, a Canadian Indigenous author, and I don't believe any of these are. And I also found it really, really hard to find books that would fit this prompt. I wanted to, because I think it's a really creative and cool one, and one that would also support authors that aren't so often supported in the publishing world. But I found it really difficult to find them and have them available to me in Germany. So I remember there's one that's called Marrow Thieves, I think, that is targeted more at younger readers, perhaps. I'm not quite sure. Then there was one that was the first in a trilogy, which sounded pretty epic, but I couldn't find anywhere. Like, it was really hard. So maybe I can still find something, but I feel like even if I don't read a book by a Canadian Indigenous author in that week, this is a prompt that will stay and linger with me, and if I don't manage this week, then I'll push myself to try and find something in the future. Then the next is to read a female author, and there are definitely more female authors than male authors in this haul. So, and Margaret Atwood obviously is a woman, so I'm not too worried that I won't get that prompt done. And then the fifth one is to read a book that is set in, I believe, a province of Canada that you've never visited. I've visited Quebec, Ontario, and British Columbia, so I still had a good shot of finding something set in a province that I haven't been to. And that is also how I came across Alone in the Classroom, this random book I don't know much about, because this, I believe, is set in, parts of it at least are set in Saskatchewan, is that how you pronounce it? So in the middle of Canada. And I have a friend who lives here in Canada and is from, who lives here in Germany, sorry, and is from Saskatchewan. So I thought that would be cool to read something sort of from her home. So yeah, that will push me to pick this one up a little earlier, I think. So I'm thinking these two are definitely going to happen, Alias Grace and Alone in the Classroom. And anything else, I'll see if I feel more like some short stories that I can dip in and out of. I've heard pretty good sci-fi, the first part of a series, or sort of fast-paced mystery, thrillery, not quite sure if this is any good book. I have much to choose from, and let me know what you think I should read, because as you can see, my thoughts on this are still very much disconnected, and maybe you can push me to read something that will actually be good. Yeah, also the other books, of course. I did also haul some that aren't by Canadian authors, but I'm still interested in them, but I must not get distracted. I want to do some Canadian reading. I hope you have a great day, and you're also joining in on the Canadian Read-eh-thon. I think it's a really cute idea, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.